So the existing setbacks on the property for the home as it sits now, will the addition extend past the side facades?
No.
Yeah, they do not.
The left side is basically flush with the existing left side of the house. And on the right side of the house, the addition is set back, approximately 12 feet from the left side of the house.
Got it. Okay. And you mentioned that it's 100 feet from the brow. How steep is the topography on the portion of the property where the addition will be added?
It is basically flat.
Okay.
It is flat, and basically on the back side of the addition, the property doesn't start to slope up for approximately another 60 feet. In the front, it's a flat portion from the front of the house till it starts a slope of about 30 feet. But obviously the existing house is between that and the addition.
Okay. And how old is the home?
Steve?
You're muted, Steve.
Sorry about that. I think it was 1930, 1929, 1930. So about 90 years-ish.
Gotcha. Okay. And how, if the addition were constructed, how would this compare size-wise to other homes on the street and in the area? Would it match the character of the neighborhood?
In our opinion, it is certainly keeping in character with the street. There are a number of much larger homes on our street. There are certainly a few that are smaller. Dana, our next door neighbor, it's about the same kind. They have an addition that was made, I guess, prior, Dana, to your owning the house. It's a similar kind of a footprint that we would extend back about the same distance, maybe a little bit less than their addition. But there has been a number of construction projects on the street, including across the street from us. So the character is, I guess, slowly changing. But yeah, today it's definitely in keeping with the character. And I think Mark's done a great job architecturally maintaining what the house has always been in terms of its look.
Great. I think that's the only questions I have right now. So, Mark, unless you have anything else.
No.
Okay. Mr. Baker, anything else you wanted to add that Mark didn't cover?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, great. Mr. Sharma, anything?
No.
All right, fantastic. Let's go over to Dana, Dana Stevenson.
Also known as Charlie, apparently.
You have like a son named Charlie or something? That's
I do.
that's usually what it is.
I have not used Zoom since last spring.
Gotcha. Oh, good for you. Wow, I'm jealous.
I work in a hospital. We don't use Zoom.
Gotcha. Yeah. Are you at 3057 or
3075?
Okay, great. What would you like to add?
Oh, Steve was kind enough to show me all the plans, and I'm super jealous. They look wonderful. We were just worried, and he addressed that, and you guys, Mark had already addressed that. We just didn't want the property line, and they're private people, we're private people. We just didn't want to come any closer together property wise. So it seems like they took care of that, and I appreciate that. The only other thing, and Mr. Sheldon talked to me, I realize this is just a overlay variance. It's not really, but since your contractor's here, we're worried about drainage. We have an old house. It's also a little older than Steve's. And some of our drains still go into the actual house, which goes into the sewage system. So when it rains a lot, we get toilet paper coming back into our into our drains, which is disgusting, but we just don't want to have to add any more into that with this bigger addition, which it probably won't. We're just trying to address any problems that might occur. So we just wanted to make sure that the drainage was going to be up to code to today's standards and not 100-year ago standards, that it would go to storm drainage, not sewage drainage.
Okay.
David, I indicated to Ms. Stevenson that stormwater management and Metropolitan Sewer District would both review the permits for this. And, you know, even if somebody's doing a shed or a detached garage, they have to show that those downspouts are properly going to, you know, not just out into the yard, not just daylighting there. They have to go to storm. So I hope that, as I explained to you this morning when we spoke, that I hope that alleviates your concern in that regard. But that doesn't have anything to do with zoning or what we're here for. But that the permit, I assure you, will be reviewed by both Stormwater Management and Metropolitan Sewer District.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
No
Trey.
further comments.
Thanks, Ms. Stevenson. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your comments. Mr. Durkers or Sharma, did you want to add anything to Mr. Sheldon's response to her concerns about drainage?
No, I mean, I was going to say the same thing. It's been my past experience that the city of Cincinnati is very thorough in addressing all those issues. And I'm envisioning any of the drain tiles or the downspout lines to be hard piped either to a storm sewer or out to the street if there's not storm sewer available. And also to Dana's, I just wanted to point out too, on her side, on the addition part, we have no windows on that side. So that, you know, it doesn't, I know Steve and Janine were worried about privacy too. So it was basically nobody's looking at one another.
They already
that side of the
no,
house.
I don't think they liked watching us have breakfast.
Okay.
Well,
But that was
did,
talked about extensively, and we did address that also. So I think this addition, even though it's going back, you know, 16 feet, it definitely maintains your privacy on that side.
Now, Steve showed me plans that did have windows. I know this is not on subject, but you're saying that I don't care. It's all what you want, but the plans he showed had windows on this.
Yeah, the original plans, that's the great room side, did have windows, and we did take them out. So
okay, it's whatever,
which is reflected in the plans that we submitted for this application.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and just for the record, we do have trees between our two homes and a hedge, which we're going to both be careful to make sure that those, we think there's still going to be enough daylight to keep them healthy. And Ranjit and I have talked a little bit about construction and making sure that we preserve the root systems as best we can. We don't want to harm those when we do the addition. So again, that's in keeping, and you know, these are, I don't know how tall those trees are, Dana. Those are very tall, and we're hopeful that that will continue to not only give us privacy, but also keep in with the character of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Great. I'd like to give Trey an opportunity to add any testimony. Trey?
Sure. Just to kind of corroborate what Mr. Durkers essentially covered here, in this situation, they would have, if this was not in Hillside, for starters, if this were not, and they were going with base zoning, they could have simply moved this addition literally 6 inches on the side facing Miss Stevenson on that east side. They could have moved it 6 inches over, and it would have covered the 10-foot requirement for SF20. And obviously, the two lots, Mr. Durkers used the perfect word to describe it. It really skews the maximum building envelope significantly when you have, especially Miss Stevenson's side yard there. I mean, that's, you know, 100 and some feet that end up making just a huge side yard setback. Basically, David, if you followed the strict guidelines here for the MBE, I don't think you'd be able to build a home here at all. If you did, it'd be the size of a deck of cards. I mean, you basically, it's so constraining from each side that it's almost to the point of absurdity. The other thing that's a little unique about this, and I think it's always important to point out when something's a unique unique to a lot. For some reason, when this was zoned, it was lumped in with the other SF20 lots that go all the way up Baird. So if you see, like on my staff report on the site plan, basically in cages, as you go up, you see some large lots to the southeast going up a street called Baird, and those lots are 4 or 5 times the size of this lot, yet it somehow got lumped into the same zoning district. This lot even is in fact not even as large as some of the ones across the street from it. That is the subject property. It's not even as large as some of the ones across the street. They're in an SF10. In fact, it's more like the size of SF6. So I'm just bringing that up as a point because it is a unique constraint on the property. The other constraint that they face is that you've got a house built in 1934, and they've tucked this in so that it does not come out as far as the house toward Miss Stevenson's side. It does not come as far as the existing home. It's tucked back multiple feet back from it. Lastly, I think as to the excavation and fill, that's not just necessary to have the 9-foot ceiling in the basement. It's also, I find on these projects, sometimes when you're doing an addition, it's a form follows function kind of thing here. Right? Maybe if Mr. Durkis were designing a brand new house, you could make it compliant with the basement by having some daylight windows. But in this instance, he has to match up the floor plates. I hope that makes sense. He has to match up the joists and stuff for the existing first floor to have everything flush there. And when you do that, it makes it almost impossible to meet that 8-foot cut and fill. You could basically have a crawl space and not a full basement. And I know they're probably were trying to address some water issues of their own. I mean, when you do a modern basement across the back of a home, it's fully waterproofed and so on, and it's significantly more watertight than something constructed almost 100 years ago. So I just found, especially because this is skewed and because the lot is unusually small for the zoning district that it got lumped into, that this is a very reasonable request. They have all the other yards, I would note, other than that one, which is 9.5 feet to the east. Their rear yard setback, David, will still be 87 feet. Their right side yard setback will be 28.5 feet. So other than the fact that, they'd be 6 inches off of the required 10 feet for SF20 on that left or east side. Since they needed relief anyhow, it really didn't make sense to move it 6 inches to comply with the 10 feet. It works out better this way. And that's why we were in support of approving this project.
Okay, great. Thank you, Trey. Thanks for the testimony and the thorough analysis in your report. Okay, anything further from anyone on the applicant owner side in closing or otherwise before we adjourn here today?
No, thank you all very much.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Ms. Stevenson.
sorry. Mr. Sheldon just mentioned that. So since the drainage has to be decoded, I'm just curious, how do you get out of having to have an egress or a window exit? Is it because they have a door so close? It's such a small addition to the basement. You know how new basements you have to be able to get out the window if there's no windows. I was just curious.
Well, I mean, Mr. Durkis can speak to that too. But
I was just going to say, in new additions, you do not have to have an egress window unless it's for a basement.
Okay.
And then it has to be of a certain size, and it can only be so far off the ground.
Okay.
Right now, we are not planning any more bedrooms down in that lower level addition.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That you have to. It's the window requirements only for egress, where you're going to have the habitable space for somebody sleeping quarters there. Then they have to be able to get out of a window and so on. But if that's not what's called for here, if it's just a rec room or something else or storage in the basement, that is not from my colleagues in the building plans examiners. They don't require that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing further, I think we'll leave it at that. I've had a chance to review the application. Based on that review and the testimony here today, I am going to approve the application for relief. I need to formalize that in a written decision, and so that's usually what takes the extra time, the extra 2 weeks. I've got a queue of some other cases. But I'll do everything I can to get that out to you as quickly as possible. As soon as I finish those decisions, I put them into a PDF. I'll email them to everybody who's in the hearing today. And so you all have a copy of that decision just minutes after it's complete. If anyone has any questions in the meantime or would like an update on the status of the decision, please feel free to shoot me or Trey an email and we'll get back to you on that. Unless there are any other questions right now, I think that's it. Thank you all again for your time and your testimony. I hope you have a wonderful day and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.